What was perennial in the Indian news media discussion was over the India and China border incursion disputes, where time and again the People's Liberation Army continues to build new villages along the disputed border in Arunachal Pradesh. And now recently, in retaliation, the Indian military has planned similar tactics by changing names of close to 30 places in the so-called Tibet Autonomous Region. In the midst of these discussions and debates, the Indian media have at multiple times invited Tibetan voices and opinion. One of the most popular and frequent invite is Tibetan activist, poet and author Tenzin Tsundue. And I'm very happy to have Tenzin Tsundue here with us today to tell us more on India and China border disputes and India's support for Tibet cause. Welcome to our program, Tsundue. So to start with, Tsundue, can you brief us about the recent development in the regarding India's border dispute with China?
Well, overall, what we have seen is India has its own position, China has its own positions, and these positions do not match. And therefore, this is a border, Tibetan border, where China and India are conflicting. And both of them bring about their own versions of history, land demarcations, and many of them are conflicting. And therefore, the borders in the Himalayas, where China and India are conflicting, it's not likely to be resolved anytime soon. But efforts are being made from both sides, and this will continue. What we are getting to see here is kind of a joke that India and China are conflicting on the border, which is actually Tibet, and both of them know that the land on which they are fighting, or where they are positioning eyeball to eyeball to each other in the Himalayas, is actually Tibet. So both of them knowing very well that they are actually standing on someone else's land, about which both of them do not consider, and keep saying India-China border, which is actually Tibet border. So I think this is the crux of it, and both of them are in a denial mode, recognizing Tibet. What we have seen recently in China's, for example, renaming of some of the Tibetan names in Arunachal Pradesh, and also India has yet to actually name those places, but has expressed this decision that they are going to rename some of the places inside Tibet. So these are some of the issues where we are looking at it, and there are a lot of discussions around it. But what is essentially coming out of this is when China says that Arunachal Pradesh is theirs, and their version is that Arunachal Pradesh is part of what they call southern Tibet. Actually goes to say that in the past, in history, it was Tibet. And India is also trying to prove the same. India's expressions of desire that it is going to rename some of the places in Tibet. India said that they are studying the past history, and they are going to rename some of the places. What India may actually end up doing is, for example, China calls Tibet Xizang, which is their recent renaming. For example, Lhoga area of southern central Tibet, China calls it Shannan. And in extension, Shannan, supposedly is also certain parts in Arunachal Pradesh. So these are the renames India is likely to do. What India proves through this is, firstly, India said certain places in Tibet, which is for the first time India has recognized Tibet. I think that's an important development here in nomenclature. And by saying that India is studying and bringing about some of the older names of Tibet, it actually goes out to say that in the result that India is recognizing that those places are Tibet and not China. So in that way, what is coming out of this renaming game is Tibet is coming out prominently as the history and the present situation. And there's a lot of discussion around it.
Obviously, this is a sensitive issue to both the countries, right, India and China. because it involves a certain amount of history also, right, which need to be researched well. And India doing that on that part, it's actually benefiting us in some ways, like you said just now. So you have been, Sundula, part of many debates or discussion over this issue, particular issue, in over last 2-3 years, right? And also, what I like to know what is your thought on this attention and inclusion of voices from the Tibetan researchers and activists like yourself in the Indian media over this whole issue.
Right. You see, media politics, in a television debate, you always need an opposition, and that makes the debate interesting and also helps in raising the TRP of TV news. And I usually like to prep it up, raise it to a level where where I'm able to counter for Tibet, at the same time truly expose Chinese propaganda in here. So what I had seen in many of these debates, there would be the usual Chinese speakers, and there's Andrew Leung, and then some of these speakers who usually come about to Indian media, and they usually say the same thing. It's a straight-jacketed line Chinese propaganda, essentially saying Tibet is a part of China. Issues like this. So therefore, it becomes easy for us to truly speak openly, frankly, and because of our studied nature of the debates we are making, it comes out really clearly to the audience that here are these straight-jacketed Chinese propaganda. Then there are the Tibetan opinion that are being said, and then Indian experts would come about. Now, I had seen before 2020. There are some of the standards that changed over 3 years. Before 2020, many of the Indian speakers would say China border, China border. And one of the persistent efforts that I've done was every time they say China border, I cut it down and said this is Tibet border. India never had borders with China. In fact, India's insistence that it is McMahon line in Arunachal Pradesh is to say that in the past, the borders, the McMahon line, it was signed with Tibet, and there was no China there at all. So this helps India's argument. So therefore, many people have now started to adopt this, and some of them, even if they say just out of practice China border, they would immediately bring about a kind of a subsidiary statement by saying China occupied Tibet or Lhasa. So these are some of the results that we have been seeing because of the certain debates that have been coming about. I think one important voice that we have been seeing on Indian media is Tenzin Tsundue, who is the Secretary, Department of Information, because he's the spokesperson. He's been coming out, and we also seen some of the voices like the former Sekyong, Lobsang Sangela, and the present Sekyong, Pemba Sringla, and Namgyal Dolgar is someone who, as an activist and also as a member of Parliament, who's been coming out and speaking. Yudun also. So we've seen there are a variety of different opinions, even within us, within the Tibetans. We all know the stands we all take. I've always been speaking about the independence of Tibet. I've been insisting on this, and that's so very important for me to speak very frankly, openly there. And Indian media actually love that even within the Tibetan community there are diverse voices, and that adds up to the profile of Tibetan speaking.
More on the border dispute, the PLA, as you know, has been building villages near the border town of Arunachal Pradesh over the years. We have seen, and also now recently, as we have just, you have also mentioned, 30 villages, places in Tibet named by the Indian military, which was done with a certain amount of research, as they were saying. But also some media that you have, the interview that I've seen, you have participated recently, weeks before that, they have called this, the PLA as a tactic as a cartographic misadventure and cartographic aggression. So what's your thought on that? What's your take on that?
Well, I had spoken so very boldly about it. I said India's tit-for-tat act on this China's cartographic intervention. India said is going to respond by naming 30 places inside Tibet. I said it's a childish act. I said India should look at the overall picture, step back and look at the larger picture and take strategic steps into this. It's a very serious problem there. What China is trying to do by naming some of the places in Arunachal, in totality is about 41 places. It came in 3 different phases. So by naming some of the places in Arunachal, China is trying to say that this was part of what is called southern Tibet and therefore China's territory. This is what China is trying to say. But India doesn't make claim over Tibet. So therefore, renaming some of the places in Tibet could tantamount to what the Chinese strategy is by making that kind of a claim. And India doesn't claim any place beyond the Himalayas. But what it also does is India is trying to say that this was Tibet. India is unable to say truly, and India has not taken it up by recognizing historical Tibet. India has never done that. Maybe this is one small step towards that, towards recognizing Tibet as an occupied country. Maybe this is a small step. So these are my own interpretations. If you actually look at the naming, we'll see that I looked at all the 41 names the Chinese government has given on the names in Arunachal Pradesh, because earlier, truly in history, entire region of Arunachal Pradesh, right up to Assam border, used to be Tibet. But because of the McMahon Treaty, 24th of March 1914, since then His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama had decided that this is going to be part of British India, and in return British India was to help Tibet demarcate the borders between Tibet and China in the Simla agreement, which didn't work out. So this is the history. So in some of the names that we have seen, the usual names usually carry the words like Gang. Gang is actually a plateau, like Gangtok. It's a plateau. Chu was river. Thar, for example, in Western Tibet, most of the glaciers would be called Thar. So some of these, Ri, for example, mountain. So we see that these are the names that are coming about in the Tibetan names that have been given. And I'm sure India is also doing similar research, and India is yet to come about the 30 names, but India is likely to do these kind of renamings, which is to insist that it was Tibet.
This week, we have seen the high-level U.S. delegation headed by Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi visited Dharamshala and Central Tibetan administration, showing a bipartisan support for Tibet. And also, we also know that the Resolved Tibet Bill will become an act after signed by the US President Joe Biden anytime soon, right? So in all this, I'd like to know your thoughts on how is it going to impact India's support for Tibet. We have seen their visit is a great show of support for Tibet worldwide.
So I'm waiting, just like all other Tibetans are, for US President Joe Biden to sign that bill into law. And it's likely to happen in the next maybe 1 week or 10 days. And that is important. Once that is signed, this is going to be the biggest political statement and support for Tibet. Although we live in India, India has been very kind to give us the refuge and support us in our health, education, various other ways. But politically, India has never talked about Tibet either in the parliament or on the outside to show that kind of a support, political support. So therefore, United States, this bill, which is going to be law, the Tibet Resolved Act, this essentially is saying that Tibet was a free and independent country, that Tibet is today occupied country under China, and is also saying that Tibetan people have right to self-determination. Now, Tibet support for right to self-determination for Tibet had earlier come in the UN resolutions in 1961 and 65 document. So I think these are important to actually show that there was such a precedence earlier. And United States, although has dilly-dallied in various other ways and means, but United States was one of the first supporters of Tibet right from 1958 onwards, when we created the Chushigangduk, armed resistance movement against China, trying to stop Chinese invasion of Tibet. United States was one of the first to join us. Even as His Holiness the Dalai Lama and about 80,000 Tibetan refugees came into India, again, United States and India worked together to make sure that Tibetans are, given this kind of shelter. So, United States and India had always worked together when it comes to issue of Tibet, and we see that both United States and India, they were looking at China as a threat, and even today it is the same. So, here is one issue where United States and India are coming together. India has increasingly in the recent, ever since the Galwan Valley crisis, India has been facing increasing threats of military invasion from across the Himalayas. So therefore, India needed to suitably respond to China, but India has not been able to do up until now. And India has been saying this is not just India's problem; it's a global problem. Now, United States has made it very clear that although United States is so very far away from the Indian Himalayas, firstly, United States has recognized McMahon border as India's border, and therefore giving recognition to historical independence of Tibet. Number one. Number two, here is an opportunity for India, an international coalition to resolve the Tibet issue. And even though the United States efforts has come to the last stage, Canada has already picked up, and therefore Canada has passed it in the lower house and is likely to go to other places. And once United States turns this into law, into policy, United States will work on this and work with like-minded countries and allies to push on this. So therefore, India has a great opportunity to join an international coalition for the resolution of Tibet issue, which is indirectly India's own problem here. I've been saying to India that independence of Tibet is in the long run a core interest for India. As long as China continues to sit in Tibet and put pressure on India, India will never have a normal border in the Himalayas. So therefore, it's a great opportunity for India to join this international coalition for the resolution of Tibet. And some of the Western countries, especially in Europe, are likely to join this bandwagon. So this is not going to immediately resolve the issue of Tibet, but what it will do is it will bring about visibility on Tibet. It will bring a new recognition of Tibet as a past independent country, and also of possible future free Tibet. So these are the debates that is going to come about from this law, which is going to be the foreign policy for United States. So I think it's a great moment for us, and I'm going to say since the time of its United States signing the law and making it policy, I'm going to say that that's going to be the points in our history where Tibet will look upwards. For a long time, most of the Western countries, they've been trading with China, and they've been benefiting from cheap made in China products, and also supply chain, where China has been mining in Tibet. Not only Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, Manchuria. 60% of China's landmass is occupied country. From there, China is mining lithium, gold, rare earths, natural gas, oil, especially from Urumqi in East Turkestan. And these are the materials, natural resources that China take, and then China has the audacity in selling these to Western countries, and today China has become one of the biggest suppliers of lithium products, solar panels, and EV cars. And EV cars are hugely dependent on lithium and rare earths that originate from Tibet. So most of the Western countries have benefited at the cost of Tibet. And this is one of the biggest arguments in the Western countries, that you have benefited at the cost of Tibet. And China's occupation of Tibet has cost us almost about 1 million Tibetans dying under Chinese occupation. And in the recent 10-15 years, we have lost more than 155 Tibetans burning in the form of self-immolations. And all that cost is what Tibetans have been paying. There's a danger of Tibetans losing our language, culture, especially in this colonial boarding schools. There is a serious threat on this very survival of Tibetan people. And all that has come at the cost where Western countries have benefited from China trade and supply chain, and therefore they have a reason to now support Tibet. And this is the I would say retribution the West must pay for Tibet.
Yeah, definitely. There's an important point to take for other nations or countries to support Tibet. So, Tsundue, these are my questions for this discussion, and it has been very insightful and wonderful talking to you, Tsundue, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me once again. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we have come to the end of today's program of In Conversation with Tibet TV. Thank you so much for watching.